Well, hello, Lubeck UMC. This is my video report for West Virginia's annual conference for 2020. And if you would like to read this for yourself, there's a link in the video description that'll take you to my report, and this will also be sent out on an email blast. So I want to thank you for watching my video report, and I hope you enjoy it. When I wrote my annual conference report last year, I never could have imagined how much change can happen in just one year. Annual Conference 2020 had to be different to protect the health of our pastors and lay people, and because of that, this report will also be different from how I've structured it in the past. For the past 2 years, I have focused on 4 main topics: resolutions, reports, worship, and ministry. Some of these sections are going to be much smaller because of the severe time limitations that Bishop Sandra and the annual conference team had to work with. These 4 main elements are still present at Annual Conference 2020, and I give thanks for the organizers who have done their best to be faithful leaders during uncertain times. In times like these, it can be hard to see beyond the immediate and the tragic. The theme of this annual conference is generative. This theme was selected 4 years ago, as annual conference themes are chosen in groups of 4. Along with the past 3 years, which have called us to be hopeful, innovative, and invitational, generative calls us to be, quote, a people who multiply the mission and ministry of Christ so that individuals, communities, and the world might be transformed. That's according to Bishop Sandra's greeting in the annual conference workbook. As much as we hold anxiety, fear, uncertainty, and grief in our hearts right now, we must also recognize the ways that ministry is being multiplied and expanded in new ways beyond what we ever could have thought possible. We have seen this ourselves here at Lubeck, where our Sunday morning worship videos are being watched online by hundreds of people, far more than we could ever accommodate if they all showed up at our church building on a Sunday morning. Our weekly drive-ins embody the Spirit's moving and bringing us together, even as we must stay 6 feet apart. We place our trust in a God who brings hope from despair and life from death. We lament what we have lost, while we witness the ways God is still working in our lives and in our world. In the spirit of living as a generative people, my report will take 2 forms: a written report as well as this video, which will be posted on the Lubeck UMC Facebook page. This report and this video will have the same content following the structure of the 3 live streams of annual conference: the Saturday afternoon legislative sessions, Saturday evening celebration of ministry and mission, and the Sunday morning ordination service. If you would like to watch these sessions for yourselves, links to the recordings will be provided. I am grateful that I can serve one last time in this role as your lay representative. This wasn't the annual conference I was looking forward to, and this also wasn't the way I wanted to say goodbye. Since shortly after sending out this report, I will be moving to Wisconsin to start work. At the end of this report is a letter that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to write, harder than a 71-page thesis. Until we meet again, either at Lubeck UMC or in heaven above, I will be praying for you all. All right, we are going to move on to talking about the different sessions of the West Virginia Annual Conference for 2020. We're going to start off with the Saturday 1 and 3 p.m. legislative sessions. The recording of these sessions is here on this slide, as well as my written report. And I highly recommend that you watch at least the first few minutes of the live stream recording, because Barry Ball, the bishop's spouse, filmed some pretty hilarious shorts to explain the social distancing requirements. We may not be able to shake hands or hug, but we can wave to each other and bow and do the robot if we want. Annual conference delegates were given a choice for their participation in annual conference. Members could sign up to attend remote, in-person gatherings across the conference, or they could elect to attend by live stream. However, those attending by live stream would not have voice or vote. I chose to attend in person because I didn't want to give up my voice and vote. I was assigned to the 3 p.m. session for the Little Kanawha District, which was held at Mount Pleasant UMC and led by our district superintendent, Loretta Isaiah. The legislative session was scripted so that when the live stream went down briefly, Loretta kept up with the rest of the body across the conference. Masks were worn at all times by those gathered. The legislative sessions were limited to just voting matters, so that 2 identical voting shifts could be held, one at 1 p.m. and one at 3 p.m. The voting process was much different from usual because no amendments or changes could be made, and there was very limited time for questions. The only resolutions that could be brought for a vote were annual resolutions that must be approved yearly. It was a strange voting experience without the resolutions and amendments that usually take up a good bit of the business sessions. Over the next few slides, I'm going to go over the agenda for the voting session. We started with opening prayer and remarks by Bishop Sandersteiner Ball. In each physical location, we lighted globe candles, identical to the one given to Lubeck in 2018, to represent scattered peoples united by Christ. We were also reminded of the social distancing procedures. Next was the organizational motion, which defined the structure of Annual Conference 2020 and its modified voting procedures. After that, we elected the conference secretary, which is Judy Keniston. And then the next very big motion was a motion to affirm ministry reports, approve necessary nominations, and cabinet property report. This one motion encompasses many reports and nominations that would normally be voted on or presented individually on the floor of conference. Nominations were limited to necessary changes, with all other conference teams remaining the same as in 2019. For the Board of Pensions report and recommendation, there are 3 main highlights. Healthcare premiums will not be increasing this year, but the conference health insurance is changing to Cigna. 97% of West Virginia providers are covered by Cigna, so there shouldn't be much disruption in coverage. There's a change to the small employer exemption, where in certain cases, conference medical insurance becomes supplementary to Medicare. And finally, Pensions has an annual resolution for rental and housing allowances for retired or disabled clergy persons in the West Virginia Annual Conference. Next was the Equitable Compensation Report. Because of the pandemic and its economic impact on local churches, Equitable Compensation is recommending that the base compensation schedule for 2021 remain at the same amount for the 4th year running. The base compensation schedule is the recommended minimum salary for a full-time appointment, but charges are responsible for setting individual pastor salaries, and they can increase pastor salaries above the base compensation schedule if they desire. After that was the trustees report and the election of trustees. The trustees must pass 3 resolutions every year, which give them the authority to manage conference property. These resolutions are closed properties and the sale and other disposition of the same, closed church, real and personal property funds, and unlawful appropriation of church property. Betsy Martin has been serving as a conference trustee for several years, and she will be the new chair of the conference trustees. For the Council on Finance and Administration report and recommendations, there are 3 total votes. The first CFA vote was for items 3 through 15, which include an annual resolution for parsonage allowances, clergy and extension ministries, as well as unchanged guidelines for conference finances. The second CFA vote was for items 1 and 2, which define the conference budget. There will be no budget increase for 2021. The recommended budget will have the same total as 2019, which is $12,877,355, with some adjustments to individual line items, such as a 2.5% cost of living adjustment for some conference staff, but not district superintendents or conference executive positions, and increases for district administrative assistants, positions that have been severely underpaid for years. Local church apportionments will not be impacted by these changes, since the total budget amount is the same. The third and final CFA vote was for fiscal investment policies, which are the same every year. Next was lay officers. There are 3 lay officers that were elected. Rich Schaefer, a member of our district, is stepping down as the conference lay leader, with Christy Wilkinson elected as his replacement. Eva Faulkner will be the associate conference lay leader, and Kim Matthews will continue to be the director of lay servant ministries. With no further business, we voted to adjourn and exited the building as safely and distantly as possible. So again, if you would like to watch the live stream recording for these sessions, the link is on this slide here. And I included a shot from the live stream which shows our bishop in a lovely face shield and love thy neighbor face mask. Next was the Saturday 5 p.m. celebration of ministry and mission. I have a link to that live stream recording here too. This session, which was held over live stream, had 2 main focuses: announcing the voting results and sharing ministry and reports that did not require a vote. Much of the live stream featured Bishop Sandra and the Dean of the Cabinet, Joe Keniston. So over the next few slides, I'm going to give some highlights. The first is the voting results. All motions passed, with individual tallies provided on the live stream. There were 438 total voters in physical locations across the conference. Next, Bishop Sandra lifted up opioid ministries and the Day of Hope, which will be in September. Burlington Family Services, local churches, and support groups are working to meet the needs of those who are affected by addiction, as well as the pandemic. Bishop Sandra then reminded us that it is loving to wear a mask, wash hands, socially distance, and care for each other. It is our Christian responsibility to care for our neighbors near and far. She also celebrated that we are sharing the gospel more broadly than ever before, and that we need to stop and recognize that God is doing a new thing. Some ministries she mentioned as new expressions of love include Spring Heights' online camps, virtual Bible schools and campus ministries, and drive-in worship in church parking lots and people's yards. Even Zoom can be a tool to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. The live stream then transitioned to the memorial service and video. In previous years, one of the worship services at conference is a memorial for the clergy, spouses, and surviving spouses who have passed. Our ministry is built on the saints that have gone before and who have laid the groundwork for our outreach and ministry. Bishop Sandra and Joe celebrated the saints' willingness to do new things. Those remembered include 23 clergy and diaconal ministers, including Ed Lowe and John Lowther from our district, 6 clergy spouses, and 9 surviving spouses. And if you would like to watch just the memorial video, I have the link here on this slide as well as in my written report. Bishop Sandra next talked about how COVID-19 has exposed racism and inequities that cause harm in our society, recommending the book How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. Bishop Sandra has been planning a Zoom series in the fall on racism in our West Virginia context with Bishop Ives, Bishop Light, and Bishop Grove. The goal of this series is to have engaging conversations and educate pastors and lay people. And the picture on this slide of this Unite to End Racism t-shirt is from the legislative session earlier in the afternoon, where this t-shirt was hung on the podium that all the speakers came up to present. Next, 20 retiring clergy were celebrated, including Greg Godwin. The bishop also recognized Mary Ellen Finnegan's retirement and 8 years of service as the district superintendent of the Wesleyan District. And if you'd like to watch just the retirement video, the link is on this slide as well as in my written report. Next were the conference awards. Bishop Sandra and Joe presented 2 sets of awards for churches and individuals, the One Matters Award and the Harry Denman Evangelism Award. For both of these awards, winners have shown that it's not about me and what I want and what I'm comfortable with. It's about reaching out to the people out there and what they need. The One Matters Award is based on Luke 15, the parable of the lost sheep. There were 3 winners this year: Central UMC in the Potomac Highlands District, Lorona UMC in the Southern District, and Morris Memorial UMC in the Midland South District. It is a distinction that celebrates professions of faith, baptism, and worship attendance. The Harry Denman Evangelism Award is given to individuals who have demonstrated evangelism in ministry, and it's open to both clergy and laity. There were 3 winners: Bob Cover from Central UMC in the Mon Valley District, Reverend Matt Johnson from Suncrest UMC in the Mon Valley District, and Reverend Brad Davis from Logan Memorial UMC and 7th Street UMC from right here in Parkersburg in the Little Kanawha District. I have worked with Bob Cover at youth events like Fall Workshop, and he definitely deserves to be recognized. Bishop Sandra and Joe next discussed at length how the laity of the West Virginia Conference are an amazing group of lay people who have a multitude of gifts and are a great treasure and a resource. Bishop Sandra calls this laity with shiny eyes. She recognized lay servants who are continuing their education online and all laity who are driving ministry for laity and providing leadership. There is a ministry of presence going to where people need hope, being multiplied all over the conference. Laity are lending their skills in IT and in sewing and leading in caring. They next transitioned to the lay leader address. Rich Schaefer is stepping down as conference lay leader, and Bishop Sandra recognized his leadership. He has had a big impact, including conversations with youth and young adults that led to Shay Dame's position as Director of Young Disciples and Outdoor Ministries. He has also trekked all over the conference with the bishop to engage with people all over the state. And I want to give some highlights from his lay leadership report because I think they're really valuable. Rich remembered how when he was a child, he was an explorer all over the neighborhood. When his father wanted him to come home, his father would whistle, a 2-tone whistle that could be heard a mile away, and Rich and his siblings would come home running. Rich reminded us to think about how we listen to God's call, like sheep who listen for the voice of their shepherd. Rich leaves us with questions to ponder as both encouragement and motivation. And I have him here on this slide because I really like the way that he put it. How much longer do we have on this earth? And what is the urgency for our heart to be in tune with God and our spirits aligned with the Holy Spirit? Is Jesus the shepherd of our life? During this time of isolation, have you spent time meditating and praying to the Lord? Have we examined our lives to make an assessment of our spiritual health? Do we know that God desires to have a close relationship with us? We were created for relationship with God. During this time of pandemic, have you been called to do something by God? If so, was it something you wanted to do, or did you resist? Like Esther in the Old Testament, we are each here for such a time as this. We are a creative people. What will it take to reach others for Christ during these strange times? Rich reminds us that Jesus will meet us where we are when we invite him into our hearts and lives. Next, ministries like Volunteers in Mission, handicap ramps, ministries that provide shelter, UMCOR disaster response both in West Virginia and around the world, and the New Vision Depot were all lifted up for their continued service. The bishop invites us to pray and to see in our mind's eye all the connections among us where Christ draws us together. We pray especially for teachers and students in these times of uncertainty, as well as for our congregations who come alongside our schools, teachers, and students. Some churches with internet are opening their doors so that students without internet can attend school. And I really liked how Bishop Sandra described the state of our church right now. As I look into the future of mission and ministry in the West Virginia Conference is bright. Jesus Christ turns things around, gives us hope. Avail yourself of the movement of God's Spirit and the presence of Christ, so that we can be the hope bringers in the midst of the challenge, because bringing hope helps people to take the first step into new and transformed life. May it be so. And again, I really encourage you to watch the celebration of ministry and mission. The recording is here as well as in my report. It's really cool to see what's going on all over West Virginia. The final session for annual conference was the Sunday ordination service, and the recording is on the slide here. We celebrated the baptism of Nora Grace, Lauren Godwin's daughter, and the ordination of Jenna Wright Moon as an elder and Heather Moore as a deacon. Two people, Brad Davis and Jonathan Charles Collins, were commissioned as elders, and two provisional elders, Paula Lee Napier and Michael Anthony Potesta, will be ordained in a future local service. As Bishop Sandra reminded us in the sermon, Jesus turns things around. And on this slide here, I included some pictures from the conference Flickr page that show the baptism of Nora Grace and Lauren Godwin there with Greg Godwin too. Well, if you've made it this far, you've made it to my final letter. When I was working on the content for the PowerPoint presentation and all the previous pages of my written report, I kept thinking to myself, do I really need to include that? And is anyone really going to care about the pension report or the equitable compensation report or Rich's lay address or the pictures? There were a handful of things I left out, but not many. I couldn't prune any more from this report for two reasons. These things are important, and these things give me hope. It can be hard sometimes to pick up the 200-page conference workbook and get through all the reports and resolutions and rules and numbers and names. What I have endeavored to capture are the things that matter. Much of the work of annual conference makes sure that laity, clergy, and ministries have the resources they need to be effective. And what is decided at annual conference directly impacts our pastors and our churches. In times like these, hope can be hard to find. My hope is that the people and ministries shared here can be a source of hope for all of you. Annual conference, even severely shorter and only visible on my computer screen, replenishes my joy and gladness in the many ways God is working in more places and more people than we can ever imagine. There are a lot of things that I'm going to be taking with me to Wisconsin. All of you at Lubeck have taught me what's important and to find and share hope. It is because of you that I am who I am. You all have given me responsibility, leadership, service, purpose, and the time and the space to grow. I'm not gonna lie, moving to Wisconsin all on my own is pretty daunting. However, my time at Lubeck has taught me that what really matters in a church and a congregation is a heart for service, care and nurturing of community, potlucks, pepperoni rolls, and a commitment to God and each other. That is what I want to bring with me wherever I go. I dearly miss all of you. A report and a video are no substitute for a face-to-face goodbye. I have been backing up my computers and putting all my files in order across the cloud and different computers. Something that occurred to me while I was doing this was that in almost every sermon that I write, I say that God is with us. When I write sermons, I am thinking about what the congregation needs to hear and what I need to hear too. God is with us through good times and bad, through joy and pain and certainty and hope. God will be with you wherever you roam, and God will be with me too. There is no social distancing from God. I may be physically distant, but you will always be in my heart and in my prayers. I promise that I will come visit. I promise, when we can all gather once again. God be with you till we meet again. Goodbye.